Cars are amazing inventions, but not all cars are made easily. The car you own was probably mass-produced and is just one of thousands or perhaps even millions of cars that look the same. The cars you're about to see in this video are a little more unique than that. They're unique, purpose-built vehicles that were made to stand out from the crowd, and they have to be seen to be believed. You'll have no problem believing in them though, because you're about to see them all. We'll start off big, and we mean really big. This gigantic pickup truck is a Dodge Power Wagon, based on the model that was popular in the 1950s but built to order by Hamad bin Hamdan Al Nahyan, a member of the Abu Dhabi royal family known as the Rainbow Sheik. It's so huge that it contains 4 bedrooms, a living room, and a bathroom, all of which come with air conditioning. When a motorized tailgate drops down, it functions as a full-sized terrace. This is the single largest truck in the world, and it's hard to imagine anyone ever making a bigger one. At 50 tons, it's astonishing that it can even move. But it can be driven like any regular truck, thanks to an engine that's been borrowed from an earth mover. Every single part of this vehicle has been made according to the blueprint of the 1950s original, but enlarged by a factor of 8. It's licensed and approved to be driven on the roads of Abu Dhabi, but it spends most of its time parked inside a pyramid-shaped building that holds the eccentric sheik's entire luxury car collection. This next vehicle might look more like a plane than a car, but it might be the future of taxi travel. The unusual-looking vehicle is called the Kora, and it's been developed by a company called Kitty Hawk, an innovative transport company owned by Google founder Larry Page and partnered with Boeing. It's not just a flying taxi, it's a flying taxi that will eventually be capable of flying without a pilot. One day, the company hopes to be able to offer its 2-seater flying taxis to passengers who will be able to summon the vehicle using a mobile phone app and then travel inside it in comfort to wherever they wish to go, flying high above their hometowns and cities and beating the traffic in the process. There are a number of companies currently working on similar projects, with Uber believed to be close to trialing a service known as Uber Air. But this is the most advanced and promising version of a flying taxi that we've seen so far. We bet the fare won't be cheap when it eventually comes to the market, though. We associate the United States of America with both the invention and the innovation of the vehicles known as SUVs. And yet, even in the crowded American SUV market, this next vehicle is considered spectacular. Created by a company called Shadow, this is the Walking Super SUV Hawk. It's part of the company's Lux class, which is fitting because you'd need a luxury budget in order to procure one for yourself. A single unit costs 1.2 million American dollars. The wheels of the vehicle are over 3 feet tall, and the active suspension is so sophisticated it can overcome any pothole, crack, or other obstacle on the road without slowing down at all. In fact, the passengers inside the vehicle will barely even notice them at all. The walking part of its name comes from the fact that in extreme circumstances, the car's hydraulics can literally raise the wheels off the ground and allow the car to walk or step over any objects it can't roll over. The bulletproof bodywork and windows allow the occupant the maximum possible protection on the road. The fuel consumption is enormous, but if you have the budget to buy one of these, we suspect that won't be an issue. Is this bizarre-looking vehicle a plane with wheels or a car with a propeller? We'll leave that up to you, but we can tell you what it's made of. Part of this unique creation is an old GMC Sierra 2500 HD pickup, and the other half of it has been taken from a Cessna 421B twin-prop airplane. It's about as unconventional as a street vehicle could ever get, but it's licensed and legal to drive on the roads, where it functions as an unorthodox limousine. The propeller is just there for show. It's secured by ball bearings, and it spins as the car moves, but the vehicle is incapable of flight. Based on the unwieldy design, we think that's probably for the best. Inside, you'll find comfortable seats taken from the interior of the plane, air conditioning, and cruise control to make the driver's experience a little easier. The car's creator named his invention Plane Car, and he was last seen offering it for sale on eBay for just over $8,000 in November 2018. The auction was successful, but we don't know where it was shipped to. It might even be on the road somewhere close to you. You might recognize this car if you're a fan of the Mad Max movies. It's appeared on the big screen as Caltrop number 3 in the most recent of the films in that franchise, Mad Max Fury Road. It's more than just a prop, though. It's a fully functional road car built around the flame of a Holden FJ utility and artificially weathered to give it its beaten-up appearance. When it's at home with its owner, rather than driving in front of movie cameras, it's known by the charming nickname of Cranky Frank. Visibility is an issue for whoever gets behind the wheel. After the roof was chopped, the gap for the driver to see through is only 7 inches high. Beneath that rusty bonnet is a 4-intake supercharged Chevy V8 engine connected to a 2-speed Power Glide transmission. More than 100 cars were built for the movie, but only 15 of them were still working by the time production wrapped. Happily, Cranky Frank was one of them, and it's been making occasional appearances at motor shows ever since. We've already said that several large car companies are working on flying cars here in the 21st century, but they're not the first to try to turn that idea into a reality. The concept of a flying car is almost as old as the concept of the car itself, and if we go back in time to the 1940s, we'll find this innovative driving and flying machine. It's the Convair Model 118, also known as the Conair Car or the Hall Flying Automobile. 2 prototype versions of the vehicle were built, and both of them successfully flew. The first was lost to an accident, and although the second one never met with misfortune, it failed to excite investors, so the idea was reluctantly abandoned. The 2-seat car body was paired with a rear-mounted 19-kilowatt engine and came with detachable wings taken from a monoplane and had 2 bladed propellers made from wood. It took off for the first time in July 1946. 66 test flights were completed in total, and Convair anticipated demand for 160,000 of the vehicles. But their hopes were ill-founded. It appears that this idea was simply too far ahead of its time. You could call the Curtiss-Wright VZ7 another take on the idea of a flying car, but in design and execution, it'd be more accurately called a flying Jeep. This vehicle was designed for military use, with the idea being it would become a multi-purpose vehicle that could perform the same tasks as either a helicopter or a standard Jeep. With its vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, it had more in common with a quad-rotor helicopter than it did a Jeep. And that's probably what doomed it to failure after the creation of just 2 prototype machines. The first prototype successfully took to the air in 1958, but just 2 years later, the U.S. Army officially ended its interest in the VZ7 and withdrew funding, consigning both models to the scrap heap. It eventually found its way back into the military in a manner of speaking several years later. The one surviving prototype is currently on display at the United States Army Aviation Museum at Fort Rucker in Dale County, Alabama. The general expectation of the car manufacturing industry is that cars powered by the combustion engine will eventually be replaced and made obsolete by cars that run on electricity. But is there still something to be said for cars powered by compressed air? Japan's Toyota industry certainly hopes so. If they didn't, they wouldn't have to cope with the KU-RIN, a streamlined vehicle that set the world's speed record for compressed air-powered cars in 2011 when it reached just over 80 miles an hour in track testing. All Toyota did to create the vehicle was invert an air conditioner compressor so that it generated power through expanding compressed air. It then put the compressor inside a purpose-built dragster. It's an impressive design, and it's a lot more environmentally friendly than running a car on petroleum. But unless they're able to take a giant leap forward with the technology behind it, it will probably never become practical to mass-produce vehicles like this. The KU-RIN might be able to move fast, but it has a range of only 2 miles. Perhaps we're speaking too soon when we write off the potential of cars powered by compressed air, though. Check out these Airpod vehicles designed by Zero Pollution Motors in the United States of America. The tiny 3-wheeled vehicles look a little like a smart car, and although their current price tag of $10,000 may put buyers off at the moment, the cost is expected to come down in the future when the technology that powers them becomes more affordable. Designer Guy Negre has spent almost 20 years of his life working on this design, and the vehicles you see here are just the latest phase in the evolution of his idea. The cars weigh a little over 600 pounds, are capable of reaching 50 miles per hour, and most mystifyingly of all, have a range of 80 miles. Nobody knows how Guy has been able to get so much range out of compressed air. He hasn't given any of his secrets away, and the car is not yet available to buy. Some of the cars we've seen so far in this video were designed to suit a specific need. Others were designed just to allow their owners or designers to show off. The Panasonic Oxy Rider Racer falls into the latter category. Panasonic wanted to show off the power and potential of their new batteries in 2007, so they used them to set a world record. The company's new rechargeable battery supplied 1.7 volts of power, and by strapping 192 of them together, the company was able to use them to power a vehicle that looks more like a shark than a car. The Racer is only 2 feet tall, so its driver has to lay almost flat to steer it, and the entire body is made from carbon fiber. The whole car weighs less than 90 pounds, even with all those batteries. It was only able to travel a distance of 3/4 of a mile. But it managed to hit a top speed of 75.8 miles per hour. That's a world record for a car powered by dry cell batteries, and it worked wonders for Panasonic's marketing team. When Shell wanted to shoot a commercial about how their Shell Helix oil worked inside cars in 2010, they came up with a novel way of doing so. Instead of telling us about how the oil works, they decided to show us. And to do that, they had to make a transparent car. This is the design they settled on. It's a Nissan 370Z, but the whole body and almost all of the parts are made from Perspex. As the engine is transparent, the movement of every part inside it while the power is turned on is easy to see, as is all the fluid that moves through it. Even the steering wheel is made of clear Perspex, as is the gear stick and all of the pedals. It doesn't look like it should work, and yet it can be driven, and it was shown in motion in the commercial without the use of special effects or other trickery. It took 10 weeks to build the car from start to finish and involved the use of more than 3,000 individual components. Sadly, we don't know what happened to the car after it was no longer required for commercial purposes. We hope it wasn't scrapped. It ought to be in a museum somewhere. If you say the words Cedar Rocket to someone who's interested in military matters, they will instantly think of the surface-to-air missile from the 1960s that bears that name. There's another type of Cedar Rocket, though, and that's this one-of-a-kind wooden car. This log on wheels was built by American Brian Reed Sr., who usually spends his time building log houses and cabins, but decided in 2016 that he was going to try his hand at something more ambitious and see if he could build a car out of logs. It wasn't easy, but he managed to do it. Inside the pine wood log is the suspension, axles, disc brakes, and some other entrails plucked from the innards of an old Mazda RX-8 paired with an all-electric engine. The Guinness Book of World Records has officially certified Cedar Rocket as the fastest all-electric log car in the world. We can't imagine that it has much competition in the category. Its record-setting pace was 55 miles per hour, although Brian believes that with a few adjustments, he might be able to double that. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.